Okay, this is the ad hoc meeting number 1 for the planning of our town hall that we will have on October 17th for regarding the Peck Park incident and also safety at harbor area parks. For those that are in attendees, this is just a planning meeting. It's not the actual meeting about the Peck Park incident. This is a planning meeting, ad hoc meeting that will be one of a series of about 4 or 5 meetings that we're going to have. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to bring up the agenda. And that's up. So let's see. So okay, so this is the agenda. So what I want to do is go over membership and our commitment to this. So right now, the 6 people that have been appointed to this are myself, and then John Barbera, Angela Sumner, Kelly Miller, Dan Dixon, and Chris Vallier. What I need from everybody is a commitment to this 100%. Commitment that we can follow through with all the tasks and do it, because if you can't do this and attend all the meetings, then we need to appoint someone else, because this is vital that, and it's an important thing that everybody is here and active and participates, because what's going to end up happening is your final role at the end of this at the forum, if you agree to the format that I'm going to next meeting propose, is each person will be presenting something at the forum and taking a role in the forum itself. So it's important, whatever you take on as research, that's going to be your project and your presentation. And so make it your baby of what you put together. So basically ground rules that I'm going to go over. So keep comments concise and on subject, respect others and act professionally, listen carefully to others, and commitment by all appointed ad hoc committee and agree to complete tasks as assigned. Also, a couple things I'm going to add to this are that, you know, committee members will commit to attend all meetings, follow through with all assignments, identify community action items along with the expectations that city leadership will work collaboratively, identify and keep a timeline, and committee will not point fingers or look for fault. It would identify solutions. Okay, so all I need is an agreement from everybody on this. So are we all in agreement?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. So
Yes.
the first item on our agenda is the name of a town hall suggestion. So originally it was the Peck Park incident, but further discussion with Ray and all, and I want him to chime in on this, because we had a small meeting with just a couple of us to discuss some of the finer points of how to do this and what we needed. And what it turned out that really this is a harbor area rec and park public safety town hall, and not just Peck Park, but how we got here was Peck Park incident that got us to this town hall. So it's coming up with a name that we're going to call this. So I put a name in here, and this is just an idea, but I don't know if this is the name we want to go with, or if somebody else has one, then I'm all for it. Harbor Area Rec and Park Public Safety Town Hall. What have we learned from the Peck Park incident? That's what I came up with, but it looked like somebody raised their hand and I cannot see.
It's Doug.
Doug? Okay,
Yeah.
does somebody want to let him talk? Since we're all co-hosts, you can all have a shot at unmuting him. And
Why don't one of you just take on the actual role of
Yeah,
That way
I'll do it.
we-
I'll do it.
John, why don't you
Okay,
do
John,
that?
thank you.
Since I'm screen sharing, it's hard to see.
Yeah, I've been checking who's that. So Doug, go ahead, buddy.
All right, well, I'm going to step in right here at the beginning and suggest that if you're going to call this a harbor area anything, and that if you are going to consider things that potentially affect everybody, then before you do anything else, you need to invite folks from the Central Neighborhood Council. You need to invite folks from the Coastal Neighborhood Council. And you might also invite Wilmington and Harbor City because, I mean, at Coastal at least, we probably have more parks than anybody. We probably have a closer and better relationship with LAPD, Recreation and Parks. And I would just suggest to you that it would be a really good idea to include at the very least Noel Gould, who is our Rec and Parks chair. You know, I'm not saying you can't go ahead and do this on your own, but I
You
think it
could
would
probably,
be
I
very
just
helpful.
don't, you know, too many hands in the pot stir it too rapidly. And I would not recommend having more than one person from each neighborhood council added to this because it's going to be way too many pot stirring, you know, and controversy.
Yeah, I understand, but I just think, you know, if
We
you
were
wanna-
going to, one of the items we have on here is we're going to survey and involve the other neighborhood councils through, you know, contacting them and surveying them about their issues. That's one of our action items.
Okay, well, you know, I'm just pointing out that this may be a discussion item at Coastal Parks Committee, so you might
Right.
want to communicate with folks.
Ray, do you want to input?
Yeah, Doug, I truly appreciate the suggestion, but as it's been already framed, this is nothing but a planning meeting on our part. I mean, if that's one of the items that we plan for as we move forward, that's, you know, that's perfectly fine. But right now, you know, this emanates from the incident at Peck Park. The implementation of items could affect all parks. You know, if for instance, I'll use the thing about permitting. If there's a permit process that, you know, we're going to want to suggest, then that will affect all parks. And I'm not saying that we suggest it out of our neighborhood council. When the actual forum comes up, other neighborhood councils will have the opportunity to chime in and make suggestions and things like that. This is just to plan the event. This is not to speak on behalf of other neighborhood councils. We're planning the event, and this is what this committee is actually in place to do.
Yeah, I would just point out to you, for instance, Coastal has already had discussions with Recreation and Parks regarding permitting and informing us of permits. And
that's
like
perfectly
that.
fine. I would imagine that
So-
most parks would want to do that.
Yeah.
But in the case of Northwest, in which the serious incident did occur, I think we have the opportunity, we have the need to be able to also express the same thing. It sounds to me that there are going to be cross or layered type of suggestions that will affect all parks, and to be able to come to Rec and Parks. Right now, they've just heard from Coastal. I'm not sure that they've heard anything from Central. They're certainly going to hear something from Northwest, but we're going to do it, you know, probably in a manner that might be a little bit different. So we're not eliminating, we're not going to be exclusive. We're just planning the event that Northwest is going to have. And we'd love to be able to take advantage of your relationships with these people. But to a certain degree, we also have relationships with Rec and Parks and LAPD and the fire department and other entities too, that we can all share the ability to get things that we as a community, as a harbor community, could need. Because the bottom line, I'm anticipating that every single one of the, everything that we may be talking about is something that could really affect and really work toward the advantage of all communities, and not just harbor area for Los Angeles, but that's up to parks and how we address it. So I appreciate the suggestion, but like I said, this is just a planning committee. Someone, we're just going to take input, appreciate your input. If that's something, that the committee wants to move forward and also include, then they're certainly welcome to do that. But right now, it's just a matter of how are we going to put this forward and how we're going to put ourselves together as a committee to look at this.
Kelly?
To remedy this, all we have to do is say, instead of saying harbor area, say Northwest Park and Public Safety, because we're dealing with the Northwest Park that we're talking about for this. That's all you have to do. Then it doesn't mean that you're excluding or including, but it's because it is Northwest Park that had the specific issue. If you just change it to Northwest.
We aren't though, Kelly. See, that's the problem. We aren't. We're dealing with public safety at parks, period, and permitting process. And when you start talking about that, then it's not just Northwest Parks. It
Okay,
is
then
all
just
parks.
okay. But if we're not including or excluding any specific, then we could, we should just
No,
say,
we're including all harbor area because the permitting process is the same all over harbor area.
oh, okay, then never mind. Then there's no problem with that name.
Yeah,
Okay.
we haven't decided on the name either yet, though, and that's the problem. Noel or Chris, I'm going to go to Noel first, and then
Yeah, Noel Gold.
Noel.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Noel, but I get
Noel.
Noel all the time. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
Neil, and I get and yeah, I echo a bit what Doug is saying, and I just want to say that traditionally all three of San Pedro's neighborhood councils have helped each other out when it comes to issues like this. One neighborhood council passes a motion that and asks for support from the other neighborhood councils, and we almost always provide this support and pass letters of or motions, CISs, things of that nature that support the other neighborhood council in need regarding their issue. And this is very timely. I have one question that you can answer after my comment. Are all of these agenda items, since this is a planning meeting, items that various members of this particular ad hoc committee are going to take up to follow through with and try to do some research regarding those? Obviously, item number 7, where you're specifically asking, are there other harbor area neighborhood councils having the same issues with their parks, etc.? Of course, it's specifically bringing in all of the other neighborhood councils in the harbor area. But I just want to let you know, for example, we have a very good relationship with Recreation and Parks, LAPD. I'm sure that you also have good relationships. But our next Coastline and Parks and Sunken City ad hoc committee meeting is going to be on Wednesday, September 7th. And a lot of the times what happens with Rec and Parks is that all of a sudden an event just appears. We had, not this last weekend, but the weekend before, a huge gospel church service appear in the park with volume levels that you could probably hear 10 blocks away. And I reached out to Deanne Dedman and asked her, was this a permitted event? What happened? And she said, oh, this is the first I've heard of it. So some people just rolled in and decided to set up a gigantic PA system and have a giant, church service right there in the park, completely unpermitted. And then we have other situations sometimes where there's great groups and then there's groups where there are big problems. And one of our agenda items on this next meeting that we're having is going to be proposing a motion that any group that wants to have any kind of an event in the park goes through the neighborhood council first and gets the recommendation of the neighborhood council and perhaps any conditions that we want to have attached to the permit and that kind of thing. Clearly, if that had been something that was a policy or something that Rec Head Parks had agreed to adopt in the situation with the Peck Park incident, that's something that could have been brought to the attention of the community first. Adequate preparation could have been made if it was something that you even decided that you wanted to have in the park. There's very legitimate reasons why we might not want to have certain events happening in our parks. And it has nothing to do with
Right.
discrimination or anything like that. It just has to do with like the concerns of the community and maybe what works and what doesn't, or certainly there's conditions that we may want to have. And the vast majority of events that we want to have come through, probably fine and probably happy to have them. But this is definitely going to be an agenda item at this meeting that's coming up on the 7th for us. And as Doug was saying, even though this is the planning stages of your ad hoc committee, we're happy to help in any way that we can, and certainly are ready to be involved in any way that is helpful to you.
Yeah, Noel, like I said to Doug, I wouldn't mind if you wanted to come to this, but it'd have to be just you, because to add like 6 members from Coastal to this just would be totally monotonous and nothing's going to get done.
It's not necessary. Yeah, I'm the chair of the Coastline and Parks Committee.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind you coming, but I just cannot see adding multiple layers of different people to this. It's
not
going to
really
get
necessary.
too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's my job to come back and report to the committee, and
I'll send you
generally
the
give some kind of
agenda.
an update.
I'll send you the list because there's 4 meetings. And then this happens, there actually 4 meetings. There's the 1st is the next one, and then the 9th, and then the 13th, and then the 29th, and then the 17th is the big show.
So there's sounds like 4 meetings pretty much in September, and then a big gap before the actual event.
Right. And that gap is in case we need another meeting.
Got it.
If we have,
Yeah, I was
are
going to say
able-
you might need one closer to the event.
right. The gap is there just as a saving place, just in case. Hopefully
and then-
we won't need one, but
And
it's just a matter of, so
right, yeah.
but I'll
clearly.
email you and send you all the information. Okay.
Great. Let me actually let me jot down your email. There's a couple of emails for me in the system. It's the Aquarian Studios at Hotmail email. That's the best one to use, and I can email you. Could I?
Okay. It's Melanie, MELANIE .Labrecque, LABRECQUE @yahoo.com.
Perfect. And then my question, of course, was: are just all these agenda items items that people on the ad hoc committee are going to sort of take on as assignments?
Right. I'm going to hopefully have people take these on. That way I'm not doing everything, and that's important.
Good luck with
I
that.
don't want to do everything. There's
All
too
right.
much to be done. So
Thanks a bunch. I'll let you
yeah.
get back to it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Dan.
Thank you. Good comments from Noel and Doug as well. Very pertinent. I was a little taken aback by the agenda for tonight because it's really a 2-track thing. We're responding to a tragic event in the community that shouldn't have happened. but we're responding to that by coming together to talk about why it happened and get input from the authorities involved about how it might be prevented in the future. But then the majority of the agenda is talking about recreation and park processes and activities and how the department operates with respect to local parks. I think that we kind of need to keep the two separated. Number one, because what happened at Peck Park needs to be discussed, needs to be vetted, needs to be aired out and talked about. I'm not sure what we can do about it, but we need to find a way to de-escalate a future situation if we can. But the whole question of how recreation and parks permits the use of public property, such as our local parks, is an important one, and it falls into the category of something that's been touched on here, which is bigger issues in San Pedro. San Pedro has 3 neighborhood councils, but it's a reasonably cohesive community in some ways. And like other things that have been identified, the waterfront, the high school, public schools in general, these are really institutions that all of us are concerned about and probably should work together in most cases to make progress when it is required. My dog ate my homework, but I printed out the application for facilities, and I will just say this is one thing, and then I'll back off. One of the things we need to be looking at is how recreation and parks permits things and how people understand these permits to work, what's allowed and what isn't allowed. And that's very different from assessing what went on in the tragedy a month and a half ago or whenever it was. So I hope we will separate the two and remain as collaborative as possible on the moving forward on issues involving the department and involving our precious park resources. Thank you.
The reason, Dan, that it's together like this is because there's been the working group thing at Peck Park that's going over this. And there is, after we had already said we were doing the forum, as well as there's been the meeting with the captain. This is a bigger thing than just the Peck Park incident. That's a tongue tire. It is a public safety issue. And the whole public safety issue is, how did we get here? What caused this public safety issue? It's like with Harbor Highlands Park, the woman that was in the bathroom. It's all the park not being maintained, doors not being locked, public safety, you know, not enough help, not enough oversight of the parks, permitting. There's no oversight at permitting. That's the other thing. And that's what we're going to look at. Is it, Dan Dedman said, oh, well, Rec and Park has no money in Region 12. We can't fix the locks. We have no money. Well, according to the 2021-22 budget, they got $30 million bump into their budget. So did Region 12 not get that money and everybody else did, or what? We need to look at, because the sacrifice of the funding also is what's caused public safety issues like the fire in Peck Park, not maintaining it, not mowing down the grass, not fixing the doors at the bathroom. That's caused 2 public safety issues, a death and all of that. So all of this comes together as public safety, a public safety forum. And the Peck Park incident got us here. And all of these things are going to fix the Peck Park incident to not happen again.
Very well.
Ray?
I'll hold further comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think those are very thoughtful suggestions, and But I kind of want to, maybe from the perspective that I am looking at this, there may be a focus on permitting, but there is, that is not the only possible remedy or the only possible to address public safety issues that might emanate from from rec and parks. But I will tell you that there seems to have been quite a bit of public outcry at the two, well, at least with the LAPD, I guess, post review of the incident. And then later on, when CD 15 also had a working group meeting at Pet Park about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, many of the people seem to feel that one of the problematic areas is permitting. If they had permitted the particular effort or the effort that was going on the park at that time, it may have been either neutralized upfront or it could have been addressed quicker. But unfortunately, people are settling in on the fact that that's one of the major problems, that there is no consistent permitting process. So I think as that has risen to the top of the water trough there, as far as a reason, I think it would be, in looking at the incident and many people thinking that the incident could have been prevented or minimized if there was a permitting process, we need to kind of conflate the two. But there's not to say that there are not other avenues and opportunities to be able to address under the public safety banner to look at this. I'll be honest with you, there were a couple other people who felt that this was a great opportunity to talk about replanting the walking trails of Pet Park. So they made it into an environmental issue, and well, not quite. That seemed a little bit too far-fetched. So we'll keep environment and sustainability out of it for the time being, unless the group decides to look at considerations like that, which there are connotations as far as what it is. But I think your suggestion is very well taken. Unfortunately, I do believe that a lot of people feel that these are two items, or this is an item that overlaps the other item of public safety and consistency. And one of the things that we'd like to do is help them understand the importance of perhaps maybe a more consistent permitting process, not just at Northwest Parks, but parks across the city. But we are part of the harbor communities, so listening to Noel, listening to Doug, that this all works hand in hand. That's why including them is not out of the question either. It's all part of consideration and something that we could talk about today or on at subsequent meetings. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Chris?
Thanks. Yeah, something that occurs to me now, at the very beginning, is that I think we need to make a particular focus. We need to have a very succinct set of questions or requirements, or in terms of what we would like to get out of the public agencies that we're going to deal with, because when you have an event like this, an incident like this, and then you have, which is going to provoke all kinds of reactions from all kinds of people, and you have all of the gripes and observations and concerns with parks we've already had, the potential to lose traction and splinter this early on, I think is a real danger in terms of losing focus, in terms of not being able to sort of, like, if we give too much input, if we're not specific in where we'd like the conversation to go, and then we'd have to hand it off to LAPD and hand it off to Rec and Parks, that we could spend weeks just talking about any one particular aspect of this. Some of which, for instance, I would imagine everybody's in agreement that we would like to not have a shooting incident occur at the park again, except that that's a practical impossibility to simply guarantee that that won't happen. So we should, not worry so much about things that we can't affect at the local level, but emphasize the things that, if we're going to, especially if we're going to loop in and include people from other parts of the region, that what sort of generalized systemic, really strategic budgetary types of changes are we asking for that would make any of the other conversations even possible? For instance, if it's sort of a known that the parks department doesn't have enough money, well, then everything downstream of that is kind of a non-starter. So if we don't, like whether or not there's going to be a ranger there or someone is checking on permits, it's like, well, that's, that's kind of the gloss that you put on the end of it. So if we need to go all the way upstream and say, look, is there even enough money to do this properly? Like if let's say we came up with the perfect plan, is that even viable with the current budget and the current administrative organization? So I think maybe we need to think very carefully about what might move the needle in a significant way for the most number of people, because obviously we're not going to be able to do anything for just Northwest, and that shouldn't necessarily be our focus. But if we go into the weeds, of which there are many and heavy, I think we are going to lose this opportunity. I think we need to sort of serve them something that they can maybe hit back over the net, as opposed to a whole bunch of things which they would have all kinds of excuses not to be able to address in a timely fashion.
So I'm going to say something. I want you guys to bear with me and work through the agenda, because I really feel like after talking with Ray and working with him and stuff, that we'll get this together, but it's going to take commitment, because what's going to happen, and we will be able to get in the weeds somewhat on some of this stuff, but each person is going to have to take on responsibility to do research and go out there and get the stuff, whichever item you sign up for. And then we'll be able to collaborate it all together and put on little mini presentations at the forum before the panelists, and then develop questions to wrap around that we're going to ask the panelists. And each section maybe allow like the public to comment on each section for a small period of time that is presented. We can vet that out, and that's an idea that we've got going here, but that way the public can get involved in the whole process of this. And but we got to deep dive into this. And so Kelly, I want to get out of the commenting because we need to go through the agenda. We still haven't decided on the name or anything like that. We're still on item number 1. And we've had all these comments. So is it anything different that you have to say?
Well, I don't know. I need to go further on the agenda. Do we have copies of the police reports and stuff? Because I got a very interesting phone call yesterday about this all being gang related. And so I kind of want to know what the police have on this. And, we're talking about permitting, and we're talking about this.
Well,
we're talking
they
about
had
that.
all of their meetings. They said that it's not gang related. It is, but it isn't. They
There are people in the gang
ex-gang members that got together for a ball game that was permitted.
Right. They had the permit, but San Pedro gangs didn't want them here and came in and shot at them.
No, that is not what happened.
That is what the gang members are saying. And that was reported from the high school level.
And
what's being reported.
And
That's
from
what
us-
we're talking about.
And from us, we want to stay out of those weeds and not go down that labeling of stuff like that. We need to stay kind of out of that. If the cops want to come on our panel and say that it was that, then that's fine. But as neighborhood council, I don't think it's appropriate for us to put labels out there like that.
Okay, well, if this is what one of the safety issues is that gangs are, retaliating, and we're having this kind of stuff in San Pedro, we need to address that. That
It's
is
my
a-
understanding that it was within the same realm of same gangs, rival of each other.
Well, San Pedro gangs are taking credit for it. I'm telling you that I got that from
I
a
don't know.
very reliable source, very reliable.
That needs to come from LAPD and not,
Right. And that's what I'm wondering is, do we have copy? I know Ray would probably know that, but do we have copies? They've never released who was shot.
that's
Uh,
something though that has to be brought up and let the police at our
Exactly.
town hall address that
Right. And that's
and
what I'm
not
asking.
us.
That's what I'm asking. How are these are the things that we need to address. I
It's
just
up for
think that-
them to give a report and say that,
Right.
not for us to
Right.
repeat it.
Right. No, I agree. But I'm just saying, I want to know, I want to make sure that that is addressed.
Right. Okay. Ray,
So, a good question, Kelly, and it brings up a real important aspect of this type of work. Right up front, Tuesday, right after the shooting, LAPD was there to kind of address all the rumors that were going around that were prevalent up until that point. And essentially, they said that this they had a kind of a taste of gang activity, but nothing local. It was all actually between some individuals who did not like each other, or there was a conflict. But they did have a gang ties at one time back then, which comes up with the fact that during times like this, rumors persist, whether they're right or wrong, but rumors continue to persist even after LAPD went in there and tried to address them. The other thing too is that people also started talking about in this issue about within social media and within conversations among each other that these people who came in were outsiders. And so they were making a distinction between people who were outside the community and people, and they didn't really have a need or a right to participate in our parks. There was kind of people talking in that regard. So all these rumors, all these things that take a life on social media need to be addressed and probably readdressed as time goes on. So you make a good point. Even after LAPD made it a point to identify who the players were and how it all sprang up, there still seems to be rumors that people want to take credit for the incident. They want and all sorts of other things.
yeah,
So the importance of this being not just a parks meeting, but LAPD, fire, rangers, and other spokes organizations, is real important so that we can address rumor if that is one of the items that we need to address at this public forum. So thank you for bringing that up.
Melanie, I've had my hand up for quite a while and I have one simple question.
yes.
I've noticed that you've scheduled this thing for the exact same evening that Coastal San Pedro has its governing board meeting.
Yeah, that it was a problem with our Zooms and our meetings too, trying to schedule it where there was an opening to do it.
Okay, so if we asked you to move it to a night where we could participate,
We can look at that and I'll have to talk to Vic at what days are open as far as for when we don't have committee meetings and other meetings going on. Cause it's
Okay.
pretty,
I'm just saying, if you want the whole harbor involved, it would be a good idea to not do that.
okay.
That's all.
John DeMeglio.
Okay, I got the mute off. I've been to that car show. That car show has been going on for a long time, years and years. It's family oriented. There are barbecues, there's kids there, there's families there. I'm an outsider in that event, but they welcomed me. There's never been a problem for the last so many years, and you're not addressing people like me that know what's going on. It wasn't gang. I know those guys. They might be gangs. There's gangs in every car club, but it was a peaceful event that they had for years. It's in the parking lot, not in the park. They bring their barbecues, they bring their families, they show their cars. There was another incident, there was another program going on there with another baseball team. I think that's where the problem was. But we don't know that for sure either. But you're not addressing the problem here. You're not addressing what happened here. These were people out to have a good time with their families, and nobody's addressing that. I understand the incident happened. There's incidents that happened the other day at the Harbor Park over here on Capitol, where this lady went berserk and started taking her clothes off. I know the guy. I know the guys. That woman's. I know that woman's cousin that was called there, that was at the scene, and he talked to me about it. If you don't get the right people on your ad hoc committee to speak about it, it's useless. Thank you.
Melanie, can I say something
So-
about this? Can I say something?
Uh-huh.
John, for your information, you're absolutely right. It had nothing to do with the car show. According to LAPD, it was more of a offshoot of the softball game. So no one's making an assumption, or no one's accusing anybody of any aspect of this thing that someone did wrong. But that's the importance of being able to get the right people there at the meeting. This is the planning meeting, remember. This is nothing but planning, so that we can get the right people to address rumor, to address actual incidents, and to address actual remedies, so that this doesn't happen again, or at least minimize the effect of it happening. So appreciate your thought that, you know, we're not addressing it, but this is only a planning meeting. Where we address it is at the forum. And we address it by coming up with solutions and remedies at the forum.
Yeah, we need to move on, because we spent so much time on this subject here that we are still on number one, the town hall name. So I'm sorry, John, but we're moving on, because this is a planning meeting, not to go back and forth about what happened. Title of the event. Okay, so the original name was the Pet Park incident, but now it's Harbor Area Rec and Park Public Safety Town Hall. What have we learned from the Pet Park incident? Does that sound okay, or are we going to name it something else? Ad hoc committee.
I
Chris.
like it.
That's fine.
Chris?
Well, everything except the subtitle. Because it doesn't mean, you know, we don't need to tell the entire, it just needs to be the boilerplate on, it's the sign over the door. It doesn't have to, you know, we're gonna have our sort of opening statements and commentary, and there will be more than enough. You know what I mean? I think if we just
What,
say
so remove the
what have we learned part.
what have we learned, Pet Park incident, what have we learned?
Yeah, and I'm also thinking in terms of like when we come up with you know, any sort of promotional materials or whatever, it's going to need to be as, you know, concise as possible. We're going to have to sort of format all this stuff.
Yes. I
And,
agree.
you know, and again, if people are unfamiliar with this incident, which seems impossible at this point, then they'll be able to get up to speed pretty quickly. You know, it's not like we're going to be taking people by surprise, so they'll know.
So, okay, let me type here. So Harbor Area. Whoops, hello. Harbor Area. Rec and Park. Public Safety Town Hall.
Yeah, I mean, that seems, you know, because
right.
of course, we're not just talking about what did we learn from this particular incident at Peck Park. This is about, even if that had not happened, all of these other issues would be worth
Would
talking
still
about.
exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so then this is the mission for the town hall that I wrote up. This, that came from Ray, basically. The committee will be grounded in the precept that Northwest San Pedro wants to work in collaboration with the city of Los Angeles departments and stakeholders. The goal is to keep our community safe by putting in place process that will provide a safe environment for members of the public to enjoy their parks with the knowledge that their safety is paramount.
That's great.
Yeah, I like it.
Things for consideration for committee. Committee members will commit to attending all of the stuff that I read off before. Now we're down to invitees. So now we're going to talk about who we're going to have as panelists. So that's going to be LAPD, LAFD, Rec and Park. So that's going to be, I really think at this is going to consist of Deanne Deadman, but also going to need to be also her supervisor. And
Melanie, it's
Huh?
it's DEDMON. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
dead man.
also her supervisor. Let's see, her supervisor and maintenance.
Yeah, I think it's important to reach as far as possible up their organizational structure. They will probably delegate
I
somebody,
think-
but you want to have the policy makers at least looped in at the beginning.
Ray?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Chris. That's exactly what I was going to mention. It has been determined that Deanne, unfortunately, does not have the authority to make decisions where some of these decisions need to be made. So I think no matter who we're looking at as far as participating, we should have decision makers at the table, not people
Exactly.
who are going to have to come back to us and things like that. So Deanne is great. She's very dedicated to the cause and she understands community to the extent that she does, but it's been determined on many occasions that she is unable to make decisions without going back to talk to somebody else about it. So, and even probably to the level of her supervisor. So just whoever we're looking at command. I'll use the term command
Right.
staff. So I'll leave it at
This
that.
should be the captain.
Or you can, if you're talking, well, I'll be honest with you. I think it probably should go to the division level or the
Captain and SLO.
no, I'm talking about getting the
Like a deputy chief or a chief.
deputy chief, the commander of South Region.
It just seems, yeah, it seems impossible that they would be like, if they were to be any sort of change in policy or strategy, it would legally affect everybody in the city. There's
Right.
nothing that they could or would do just for us. It would have to be something that would be applicable anywhere. So, we should start, and again, even just to copy them in the conversation so they know what's happening. Again, they'll send us
Yeah.
somebody, but the chief should know.
And for the fire department, what would that be?
Well, you also have chiefs that are stationed here in the harbor area, so we can look out, reach out to them.
So that would be the fire chief.
Well, yeah,
I think we want to
Command
consult the South Bureau of the Fire Department.
right, absolutely, absolutely.
South Bureau.
There's a assistant chief, a deputy chief, and a lot of
Chiefs in between,
Yeah,
a lot
I'm
of
looking at the org chart right
station
now.
commanders.
yeah.
Yeah, if you go to lafd.org/organizational-chart, there's a kind of a brief one, but it doesn't really tell you by region who you might be asking for, but they do specify like what their kind of functions are so that we at least know who to search for.
Well, I'll tell you, a good resource is the fact that you have someone like Dan who has an insight on an inside track to some of that too, right, Dan?
If I take my life in my hands, yeah, I could ask. I could ask him. I will.
Yeah, I do see an Operations South Bureau Deputy Chief, so not a name, but that's the title.
Yeah, I can get that for you.
So I added a couple of ones. So we've got Rec and Park there. So Park Ranger Supervisor, CD15 leadership, press. We need to invite the press to this. And
You know,
maybe community leaders, I'm not sure who.
Melanie, I was just about to, when we wrote CD15 leadership, I thought, since we're not going to have that leadership for very much longer, at the risk of it becoming politicized or to put too much emphasis on some people who don't have the job yet, there are candidates for the next CD15.
Well, that's what I was thinking, like identify specific community leaders. So those would be, I think those would be the community leaders maybe that we're identifying.
Well, is it just the two candidates on the ballot for November?
Just the two,
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we should probably invite both.
Danielle and Tim,
Right, because one of them is going to inherit this, right?
I think that's a good idea.
PD15 candidates.
Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously then we're gonna have the public that is going to be invited too. Then public.
Can I make a
Yeah.
suggestion for consideration? You may want to think about faith-based leadership. Because you do have some faith-based organizations that were there, especially you had a couple people from
Oh, Lisa, you mean?
well, Lisa's one. You also had one from Project Hope.
Okay, so Lisa, I'm trying to think what her name is.
I don't know, but I mean, just put on faith-based leadership as a consideration, because there could be others in there that we're just not.
There. Okay, Dan?
Well, if there are community groups that regularly use Peck Park and other larger parks, maybe you want to reach out to them. I don't know, senior citizens, baseball
Well, they
leagues.
would, yeah, those would be the people that, like the public and all that, they'd be part of the public.
Well,
That be in the
I'd draw
attendee
them.
side. This is gonna be the
I-
panelist side.
Okay, I think they should be drawn in as much as possible. All right, thank you.
Angela?
I'll just say again, sorry, I'm sick and I don't have a voice. We had talked about maybe the hospital. Were you still considering inviting hospital staff to come?
Or Little Company Mary? Ray, what do you think?
I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask, and
Yeah,
I like to go back to emphasize something that Doug and both Doug and Noel saying. I mean, we, at some point, whether it be part of the planning or definitely at the actual event, the neighborhood councils, and I would really consider maybe expanding this group to include neighborhood council representation.
yeah, for well, we've got Noel and what I'll do is reach out to Central and see if they have somebody,
And
at least the ones from San Pedro right now. So we have representation there, at least.
if I can just say, let's not exclude any associated neighborhood council with parks associated with them.
Right, so I guess we could ask for one representative from each to attend.
Whatever the group says, I'm just going.
What do you
along
think,
with it.
everybody? from the neighborhood councils, they can send one
That
person.
sounds good.
Yeah, I think one would be good because again, we're just in terms of the functionality of the group, the more people it's gonna be harder to maintain focus.
Right, exactly. The bigger the
also-
group gets.
Well, and then to be also be thoughtful about what their sort of roles would be. Like we'd like to have you to participate and contribute. What exactly would that be? Because that's going to have a literally amount of time dedicated to it, X, Y, and Z. So we should sort of, when
Right.
we're seeking that out, we should be building it as we kind of do that, because it can just sort of snowball without necessarily having a structure.
So what I'm going to do, things for consideration for committee, I'm gonna add this. Invite one rep from each. Okay, I'm glad I can type. Each neighborhood council in Harbor area. Okay. So that's in there. So we have that. So now we move on to the next portion of this on the agenda.
Doug had his hand up.
It's down. You put
Okay.
it down. So we're at this part. So one big question that's come up is the day of the Peck Park event. Were they ready for this type of event? Do they do drills? To prepare for this event, and especially in our area, do they do drills for something like this? Are they training? Because part of the problem too was the staff at Peck Park didn't seem to know what to do. They were really upset. And even Jessica has PTSD after all of this. She was so upset at the working group. And I'm like, they aren't offering you any PTSD counseling or anything? She was like crying, and she said no. And I says, well, then you need to demand it. I said, you need to go to them and tell them that they need to provide that for you. But they seem somewhat ill prepared for it. And so I'd like to have answers to that question, as to what preparation goes into LAPD, LAFD, and also Rec and Park to prepare for any type of situations like this. Do they train them ready for this type of incident? And so what we need is, who wants to take that on to research that? Chris?
Well, I can start to looking at it. It actually does remind me of some of the conversation we had with Harbor Division for the Point Furman incident, where
Right.
basically asked about what are some sort of standard tactical situations, and that sort of stuff. I believe the captain at the time went into a little bit of that, just to kind of define terms, and talked about how they prepare for things.
Right, because one of the things, Chris, that came up with the Little Company Mary thing was that Little Company Mary supposedly didn't know, and that's where LAFD comes in, that people are going to self-drive themselves from that incident there. Harbor General knew that they were transporting where they transported to, but they didn't transport to Little Company Mary. So they had all of these people showing up, and they were calling around trying to find out what's going on. Where did all these people come from?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we're probably going to find out, and it seems some of it seems intuitive, is there's an element of chaos in this that we should, in terms of doing our own research, not expect too much in terms of we're going to be hitting, we're going to be giving these prompts, we're going to be asking these questions of these public officials, and we have to be thoughtful about what things are actually within their remit and what things can actually be controlled. For instance, if someone's injured and decides they want to drive themselves to a hospital, I'm not going to put LAFD on the spot explaining why that is necessarily, if we're going to have time and energy from them to explain a bunch of other stuff, because they may
Right.
dance around and try and answer it or not, but if we can't get an explanation as to why this happened in the first place necessarily, then what people do subsequent, again, it's going to eat up time without necessarily giving us any sort of satisfying.
Right, but
result.
this is the purpose of the reports, to do them, to find out beforehand, before the meeting, and present.
Okay,
So from this, we'll have like things to present at the town hall. Then at the end, it allows the panel to answer a set questions that we may develop out of what we've researched. And then allow people to ask questions too, to come up with solutions.
okay, well, then I can go to what, so would we like to, for this section, we're talking about LAPD, LAFD, and Park and Rec and Parks are the
Whether
three.
they do anything to prepare their
So,
people,
like, do they have essentially like these?
a training, like a shooter
natural-
training, or,
Yeah, natural disaster, active shooter, what have you.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that on.
So next is the permitting process. I'd kind of like to be involved in that, but if I have somebody else that wants to do it with me, that would be awesome.
I'd like to do the permitting process too. I really want to find out how they determine. I want to know why, when they don't have permits, what's the process? Why aren't these people being not allowed to be there, or told to leave, or whatever, or fined or something? What's the process when they don't have permits?
Whoops, what's going on here? There. Next is survey of other harbor area NCs, inquire about each NC. So this is the survey thing, where I was going to survey for parks, but if we have a representative from each NC, hopefully we will get a representative, then they can answer these questions, I would guess. So I don't know, do we want to assign somebody to these or not? What do you think, y'all?
Melanie,
Dan?
I'd like to take part of this, which is sorry, where is it? Oh, the whole question of maintenance budgets for these parks.
Okay, you
there's a
want to
huge-
take on the
huge-
budget?
I want to take on, is that another item farther down?
Yeah, that's further down.
Yeah,
one.
I
do
guess,
we
I
need-
guess so,
I
yeah.
read the survey thing. Do we need to appoint people for the survey if we're having representatives
think-
from other
I
NCs?
think if you have representatives from each NC, maybe that will take care of that. I don't know.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think that maybe this is a way to coalesce, to consolidate the outreach process. So we're gonna, we already obviously have spoken to Noel and Doug, but for if it's Harbor Gateway North or Wilmington or whatever, whoever reaches out, if they find people who are interested in participating, that would be the beginning of the conversation to sort of coordinate. It's like, okay, so we'd like you to participate. What would you like to say? You know what I mean? So they can sort of work out the details of how that person's going to get wrapped into the overall program.
Right, so if Harbor Gateway, say, and Harbor Gateway North don't send anybody in Harbor City, then we circle back on that.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be like the conversation started to really get the bullet points. It's like, this is what happened. This is what we're going to try and do to pursue it a little bit. Would you like to participate? How so? And let's work out the details of what that would look like, sort of thing. And that would kind of, bring them to the table and not have to start from scratch in terms of, them learning what it is we want to get done.
Okay. So and now we're on 7, Dan. Look at Rec and Parks fiscal year budget. Why was it increased by 30 million? But budget, the 12 was without Olympic funding. There's this other Olympic funding that supposedly a lot of parks got because the Olympics are coming here. And Peck Park didn't get that, and neither did Harbor Highlands. So
Right.
why is that?
Are you talking about new money from the
Yes,
2028 Olympics?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And we were
I
left
think they
out
haven't
of
quite,
it.
I
We were
don't think
left
they've
out of
quite
it. I'm
given out.
curious how many other parks were left out of it in San Pedro and the harbor area.
I
I
think
know
they're still giving
Harbor
out money.
City got it.
All right.
Harbor
Well,
City
I'll-
got it, but that's the only park I'm aware of.
I'll do my best with 7.
So who else wants to work on this with Dan? Because it really is a 2-person job. Chris?
I got it.
I'm sorry, yeah, I was gonna say, and I don't want to intend to comment on every single point, but this is what I'm talking about when there's these high level policy things. I think this one deserves extra emphasis because this is why the landscape is what it is in the first place. It's like, because we're geographically isolated, because we're kind of the redheaded stepchild of the city or whatever, that means a lot of things from sanitation to parks to police or whatever.
Do you want to do this too, Chris? Do all 3 of you want to work on this?
Well,
Why don't you, because it's a big thing.
yeah, I think that I'll take a piece of that because to me, this is one of those basic sort of like, it's literally infrastructural kind of things that makes this other stuff possible. It's like, this is where, when you don't get the money, everything else kind of is subsequent.
Right.
We'll do our best.
Awesome. The next is why are we so short on park rangers? Why are some allocated to some parks and some not? I'll take
Yeah.
one on and talk to my park ranger buddies over at Harbor Gateway. Angela.
I can help with that if you like.
Okay. We can look into that and see if it's a budgetary thing also or something.
I was astonished to hear that there are 30 park rangers for the entire city.
Yeah, out of 430 parks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, Mel,
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Barbera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. She misspelled her own name up above.
I know. Let's see. I see. There's that. Chris or Bera. There. And there we go. And so this maintenance thing.
Well, it seems like 7, 8, and 9. And again, I think it probably makes sense because it's going to be such a huge thing that it's broken into at least 3 pieces, but it all kind of goes backwards to why don't we have those resources? Because the Rangers cost money and all that other stuff, but it's like, I think
Actually, you're right, Chris. Why don't you guys, you can do 7, 8, and 9.
I mean, it seems like we're
They
simplifying.
all kind of tie in together.
It really comes down to budget and,
But-
it really all comes down to budget. And, we have to ask specific questions about why is San Pedro the harbor area.
Yeah, these 3
you know.
kind of tie in together. So why don't we do that? It really, so.
Because I get the feeling that the answer to all those subheadings is going to be budget, right? And then
Right.
we have to go back to the people who decide that, which, may involve wrapping in CD15 or whoever, but it's really going to be people who have great big desks and get to sign stuff who will have to answer ultimately.
Yeah, that would be perfect that way. Then we'll handle 7, 8, and 9.
And then Angela, we'll do this one if you're okay with that. About security and public safety at the parks.
Yeah, I think that chain of command is a big one because again, we've had that with other situations where whoever's there tells you it's not their thing, and then you're just, you're supposed to just keep looking.
You have Doug's hand up.
Doug?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that while you're correcting spellings, Deadman is DEDMON,
Right.
not MAN.
Yeah.
But there was another thing here in all of this. You keep referring to Region 12. I'm assuming you're talking about the Dunn Region 12.
But the harbor area rec and park, because she what is it? Because she is the regional person for this area.
You're talking about Deanne Deadman.
Yes, her region.
Yeah, her region is Pacific region.
Okay, Pacific region.
Yeah, there are
okay.
there are only 3 regions in the city.
But, okay, so
And
it's called Pacific region?
Pacific region, and it covers a huge area. So you might want to check that out also.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid. if you
Supposedly
keep-
she says that her region got cut, even though they got the $30 million bump.
You know, I would actually check that because I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of that 30 million went straight to salaries. That would be
Oh,
my guess.
really?
The other thing you might want to look at is Prop K money and Prop M money. And there was at one point some discussion about putting a ballot initiative on for some additional rec and parks money and also Quimby funds. Now, all that's capital stuff, but you might, because I know that they're getting ready to spend a bunch of Prop K money at Angels Gate Park.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if that's a consideration for you guys, but you might think about it.
The other thing was, Doug, did you hear anything about the Olympic money that was given to some parks?
You know,
2028?
my question is this money that came from the 1940 or 1940, yeah,
1928 Olympics, it's for.
No, 1932. No, the 1984 Olympic Foundation. Is that the source of the money?
It's
or-
supposedly this Get Fit thing because the Olympics are coming here.
Okay, the reason I asked the question is because there are going to be 0 Olympic events in San Pedro
I know.
or anywhere in the harbor.
So is that why our parks didn't get the money?
I don't know, but it might be.
But Harbor Gate or Harbor City Park did.
Well, is that Ken Malloy or is that?
No, Harbor City.
Supposedly Harbor City Park and Ken Malloy got the money.
Okay, well, yeah, I have no idea. Again, I don't know of anything about the organization. I don't know criteria. So.
And then somebody mentioned to me, it's because they use income ratio around the parks.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
Ken Malloy is a regional park,
right.
Yeah,
not a local park.
Well,
they use the ratio of income around the parks, and because the ratio around Peck Park and
Right.
also this area, the ratio income is higher and it's not lower income, that they use that to where they were giving it.
You know, you might also want to talk to, I think Barbara St. John at Central, because I know they just got $1.5 million for Anderson Park.
Oh, okay.
And so, and I mean, at Coastal, we got, I think, some amount of money to fix the Wilders Annex stairs. So,
Hmm.
you know, it's out there. You just
It's
have
out
to work
there.
with Rec and Parks to find it. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, all, with your permission, I'm gonna have to drop off. I have another
Okay.
meeting I have to go to.
Alrighty, Ray. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, all, for all your work.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You're awesome.
Right,
Thanks. So yeah, so you guys, you got your work cut out for you. Like I said, it's a 3-people job for those. John, Chris, and Dan.
We will cover the waterfront, as they say.
Well, I think if we, just break it up in terms of the department and just kind of, we'll call some public information people and,
We'll figure it out.
yeah.
So social media posts, create a flyer and distribute to various outlets.
Well, I can definitely do that one since I have access to the account logins anyway. If you just give me bullet points of what information you want there,
Okay.
I will come up with some mock-ups, some
And then I
options.
think all of us should share on our Facebook pages once it's created to
Yeah.
get it out there, as well as share on other San Pedro groups that we're in. The other thing is, do we want to have flyers printed for this and posted anywhere? Like a couple of, the poster size stuff to put in anything.
It might be a good idea to have them. I think, I guess it's one of those questions where,
Or do we want to rely just on social media?
Well, I mean, that is a good way to catch people. I'm just wondering if we were to print, then it comes to the question to how many and where do we put it? Because I guess you're asking, where can we reach with a printed flyer that we couldn't reach with social media? And I don't know offhand, but, I would imagine in and around the park to start with,
That's what I was thinking, like the bulletin boards, like at LAPD, up at the different parks.
yeah, and it's just, it's I'm not sure how many people we're going to reach, for instance, in the lobby of the police station relative to the time and expense to print those. There will be some, but I'm just, I think it would be worth it to have some printed material somewhere, but maybe we should.
I'm just wondering if maybe like 50 of the.
I think that would be fine, and then we could take it to Weymouth Corners and the shopping centers along West.
Yeah.
Those kind of places where people closest are most likely to see them, even the gas station, something like that.
Because we'll have to get like a budget for like $100 to do this.
Yeah, I think a limited number would probably be good in some places where we know there's a lot of traffic.
And then posting them at the parks is probably going to be the best places.
Yeah,
Dean Dana, but Bogdanovich, even Point Furman, because we had some flyers. Somebody stuck flyers out there at Point Furman, and they came down to see the movie in the park because they saw the flyer.
that's a good point.
Yeah, so I think the
Even a
parks.
couple downtown. I mean, I saw a movie in the park flyer at Crazy Fish. So it will get some people's attention, and meeting online, a few more people is a significant increase in the turnout. So it's good.
Yeah, I could post it over at Raffaello's too, because they'll let me do right there on the side where they walk in, the people will see it right away. That one we could do a poster.
And we'll have two first Thursdays before the thing happens. So
Melanie,
So do we want to?
Melanie,
Hmm?
speaking of Dean Dana, do you want it put on your list of people to talk to, not to participate necessarily, but to be aware of it, the County Parks and Recreation Department?
Oh, rather, yeah, because county is a different one, right?
I was
It's
wondering
a
about that. And about
totally
the-
different department, and they run Dean Dana, and they run Friendship, and
So we should put them as a panelist too, you think?
well, I'm not, I wouldn't say that. Perhaps we should reach out to them and see if they want to be involved.
Yeah, ask them maybe, because they would tell us whether they thought,
I'll put a note here
Yeah.
on this.
is in terms of enforcement and everything, it's different because they have the sheriff's department and they're, it's a,
Right, the Sheriff's Department as well would be a consideration.
Yeah, actually, if I could jump in real quick. County has jurisdiction, Outer Beach at Cabrillo, Royal Palms, and the park up on the cliff top above Royal Palms, and Bogdanovich, but not Friendship. Friendship
Right.
is Rec and Parks.
Doug is correct, of course.
And then. And then Sheriff Department. Because they do Eastview Park is sheriff.
Right,
well, and we also have like the La Rambla and the other unincorporated stuff that's near and, adjacent to the parks.
Right. So let's see, we got that. Future meeting content. So this is our list of things that are for future. Review draft email letter that will be sent out to invite panelists. So I'm working on that, and I'm kind of using the rough template that we use for the Point Furman thing for the letter, Chris, that you originally wrote.
Yeah, that's, it's a good outline. It's
yeah, so I'm using that as an outline and just tweaking it a little bit, and I'll have that for the next ad hoc meeting. Victor Christensen will be the sergeant at arms for the town hall meeting because he has no involvement in the panelists or anything else. He'll just be there for the muting and unmuting of people that are gonna speak in the public comment aspect of this and stacking them. So he's totally focused on just doing that. Because if we have a huge turnout to this thing, especially if we're inviting all of the harbor area and we end up having a couple hundred people in the public comment, this could get a little tedious.
Well, again, that could happen even with 1 or 2 people. There will be 1 or 2 people
Exactly.
who are going to want to, go long. So,
But what he's gonna do is I'm gonna allow him to share a screen. And we're gonna have a clock for the public comment where the clock is gonna be set and on the screen for 2 minutes. And they're getting their 2 minutes and moving on to the next one. Especially,
do
so
we
it
have
doesn't get-
resources? Is it built into the Zoom software that you can share multiple screens?
No, so what is gonna have to happen, he just has to put his clock on his
Oh.
camera
Gotcha.
and show it that way instead of his face. And
No, that's
so,
fine.
yeah, I went over that because I thought, can't we have a clock? Isn't there some way that Zoom has a clock?
It
And they
should
don't.
really at this point, but
Unfortunately, they should. That's something they need to add. So then our deadline for these reports is September 19th is the deadline I'm shooting for all the reports. Because then we can collaborate the whole format together on the 29th to put everything together and get it down precise. That's my goal. The format and agenda for the town hall, what will it look like? After action plan. So this is the big one too, is, oh wait, I forgot something on this. Develop questions to ask panel. We've got to do that. We've got to develop questions to ask the panel. And
again, I think maybe some of the basic angles that we took for the Point Furman thing might be applicable to this, because really what we have is, in a way, the worst case scenario that we were hoping to have avoided at Point Furman. That is, we had an event, a largely attended event that had, some unquantified amount of supervision or oversight to it, and there were crimes were committed and there was violence. And so this is maybe just a more extreme version of what we're asking about Point Furman. And this is, in a sense, like what would happen if Point Furman had gone the way we were glad it didn't.
yeah,
But, it's very much,
exactly.
in terms of what we would like to hear back from the agencies, I think it's a lot of the same kind of information, but, hopefully with a little bit more of a spark towards actually changing the policy.
So G, we're gonna have to have an after action plan. Basically, what will be the plan for implementation? And how will accountability be implemented? So say they come up out of this a permitting process that's different. How are they going to be accountable? What's going to be the accountability for it? So we're going to have to, are we going to need another forum later based on, because we're going to ask questions like, who is the enforcement for this stuff? Up here with security and public safety, who are we supposed to call? And we're calling, and then say, for instance, they tell us, well, it's LAPD. Okay, we call LAPD and then they don't show or they won't do anything. So what is the action plan for that? Do we turn around and do a special get together with LAPD about why we were told this on this date at this? And, we have to figure out how we're going to go forward with this.
Yeah, and this is really the hard part in life, but for us especially, because we can't twist anybody's arm behind their back. But that's where I think we need to make sure we have a real specific focus and like a set number of asks. Like we want you
Right. And that's where
LAFD.
developing those questions and solutions
Yeah,
are gonna have to be very specific of what we're going to tell them we recommend they do, as well as the questions that we ask the panel have to be very specific.
yeah, and I think, you know, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe, well, I mean, because what this is, it's a negotiation, right? I mean, technically, they could do any number of things. We're asking for what we want to see happen and giving them the opportunity to come back and say, well, you know, you asked for this and we can do, you know, 60% of that or whatever. We can't do it at all, or we can do more.
Right.
And so we tell them what we want and then invite them to give us some kind of response. You know, I don't know what they'll be prepared to tell us right then, but we should have some sort of like a timetable for following up. And
Right, like in 90 days, or say in 6 months, we'd like to see a new permitting plan, you know,
Yeah.
and send it to our neighborhood council, you know, to review, or
And I suppose it's going to include some questions about asking them, how is it that they do make those changes to policy when they do for whatever reasons? Like if it was something else, you know, if they decided they need to put, you know, take all the water fountains out or whatever, how would they go about doing that, or any, you know, anything that they do, so that we have a sense of how long does it take them to do anything that they actually want to do, as opposed to what we're asking, which could not. You know,
right. So all of these sections where people are doing, you know, like the budget and stuff, you guys, what I'm going to ask you to do also, when you get your information and your report all together, is also have your report and get the facts, but in that make recommendations, you know, from what you gather. Does that make sense? So that way we have the recommendations that are coming out of each of these reports.
I'm just, I mean, and part of this is it's kind of a civic university aspect to it. I would like to know, and maybe this will be part of the research I'm doing in terms of who we're talking to for these items. Is there a person or small group of people, like if the mayor said, I want X, Y, and Z done, could it be done that day? Or if it's head of the parks, park and rec, are there individuals or are there single decision makers who could theoretically give us what we wanted? Because I know, like, you know, we'll be asking who they send, but someone's got to sign this, you know, work order. Someone's got to, you know, approve this budget.
Right.
So do these things go to city council? Do they go to the mayor's office? And so
Budgetary stuff all goes to city council.
right. And so in some cases, maybe our, you know, because it will take on a political and a big picture thing pretty quickly. Part of our approach is that we're going to ask specific people for things and then ask them to tell us why or why not they can't, you know, do that. Like, you know, Mayor Garcetti or whomever.
We could always say that our recommendations are this, and then do a letter to city council about the budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think at least, you know, knocking on their door with this thing is important, just so they can't say that they didn't know.
But that's why we need to get the head of Rec and Park here.
Yeah.
I want to try hard to get him here for this.
And because if we don't do that, I think it's just going to be like the Harbor Highlands bathrooms all over again, where we go round and round in circles and people tell stories about what they saw and they've heard excuses and why things can't be done. It's like, well, we already know that stuff. We don't need to have a meeting to find out why, you know, the bathroom is always a problem. It's like we need to really, like, literally take it up another level or two,
Right.
so that people who have the ability to change that can explain why they don't do that. You know, again, I know that that's going to be slippery and difficult to get a grip on.
Okay.
But I think that's one thing that we can find out when we reach out to, you know, the police department and fire and parks. We can get a sense. I mean, that's certainly something I'm going to be asking is, you know, when anything else gets done, how does it get done? How long does it take? Who approves? You know, so that
Right.
we're not just, we don't spend so much time on discovery that we use it all our energy up before we even have the conversation.
But we accomplished a lot here. I really, I think we did good here. We accomplished a lot, and this is our first meeting. And I'll get an agenda out for the next one. And that one, basically, what would you like to see on that agenda, do you think?
I think we need to work on the questions. I gotta go, guys. I'll talk. I'll see
Okay,
you Thursday.
already.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Kelly.
maybe develop, because the questions are kind of come out of our reports.
Yeah, and I would say that we, I mean, you know, I will certainly try to gather things that'll help us focus. But
So what I think what we'll do is I'll work on the letter. We'll work on and talk about what just start developing questions next time for the panel of what we're going to ask them. It's going to be, and then we're going to have to frame it around who we think's coming and then adjust it to who responds.
yeah, I think that'll be real important. I remember with the Point Furman
To
thing.
say that they're going to actually show, because
Yeah,
remember we had that problem.
And you don't want to build your outline too much in anticipation of people who may or may not be there. Like, we would still like to be able to have a conversation, even if, you know, one of our star attendees isn't there.
And then we can talk about next meeting too, my idea about the format of the town hall. This is an idea that I threw at Ray and he said, oh, that sounds interesting. That sounds cool. It'd be a different way of doing it. So I'll explain it all to you next meeting, how I would like to do it. And if you guys are in agreement of it, I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So we'll talk about that next meeting too on the 1st. But anyway,
So you're gonna send this to us?
I can send this to you, sure. This
Yes, unless we know who's doing
this-
what and.
this, you know, honestly, these are going to be the minutes. I'm sorry, but this is the minutes.
Yeah,
It works for me.
works. Yeah, it'll be fine. As long as we get a copy and we know what's going on, we
Right.
know who's who, who's working
These
with
are the
what.
minutes, and I think this is what's important is also, oh, something we've got to put in here too is date of town hall tentatively.
Oh, right. And that's what that was gonna be my next question about,
October 17th, but look and see when else is available.
all right. So then which answers my question, which is we're not going to publicize anything about it yet until we get this date locked in. So what I'll do
Right.
is I'll mock up, you know, an electronic, you know, flyer, something that would go in the e-blast and Facebook and all that stuff. And I'll have that ready for the next meeting. Hopefully we'll have a date by then, but like as of September 1st, if we have a date, then we can, you know, more or less approve whatever materials,
Right.
send it right then.
So hopefully, yeah, that will work.
Okay,
So, anyway, and hopefully the email we can get approved next meeting too, the letter that goes out, because I think it's important that, and I'm gonna have to try and identify some of these people. We've got some of them from before, but we've got to go through and find out who this person is in charge of DN Dedman. So we're gonna have to dig that name up. And
It might
find
be
it.
something as simple as just going to their website and kind of looking at the org chart. It might have to, you know, maybe make a call and just
And
ask.
identifying
Yeah.
who the press is.
Well, like Daily Breeze, LA Times, I don't know.
Right.
Let's get random links.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So
they'll
it can
keep
be
them out.
misquoted.
You know, it's all we need.
Anyway,
Oh, it still says MAN for Deadman,
where?
Oh,
under
4C.
4C.
Oh,
It should be MON, I think they said.
Oh,
Dedman.
ON, I think.
Dead man.
Is it
MON,
M-O-N? M-O-N?
MON.
Oh, geez. Okay.
run out of vowels.
Yeah, so we, and then,
For the record, Melanie, it's the Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks and the Los Angeles County Department of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, okay, reach out to,
You did that on purpose.
You're right.
Los Angeles County Department of Parks and Recreation, or Rec and Park.
Rec and
Parks
Park.
and Recreation.
Oh,
Minor point. Thank you.
And then Rec and Park. Okay, sounds good. Whoops. So I think
that's it.
we're good. So the next meeting is September 1 at 6 o'clock. And I think we're good. You guys,
Excellent.
I think we're off to the races here, and I think it'll be great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Thanks, everybody.
I'll
And
try to get my voice back for next time.
there we go.
Good.
Well, you got,
Yeah, thanks, everybody. And we,
3 days.
Okay.
in 3 days,
Yeah.
try and get this together. But anyway, I'm excited. I think it'll, once we get it all going, and I'll try and reach out to the other neighborhood councils and see
We're done.
if they have anybody that they want to send, but let them know that just one person, because otherwise it's going to get too crazy.
Mm.
But anyway,
Well, thank you,
thank
Melanie.
you guys. I'm going to
Thank
stop
you.
the recording.